we could only stop the traffic and just say hello. Or am I the only one who hears above the noises? My words will not be lost in all of this poison. 'Cause in this crazy world we're in, it's all about the ripples, ripples, ripples. It's all about the steps we take. It's all about the ripples, ripples. It's simple. The smallest things can make a change. My whisper turns into a voice. The voice turns into a mass of people. And then the whole world sings along. And the whole world sings along. It's all about the ripples. I used to dream in silence almost every night, and kept my hero bottled up inside. I know I'm not the only one afraid to take a risk. Just imagine what would happen if we all did. We gotta let the waves begin. It's all about the ripples, ripples, ripples. It's all about the steps we take. It's all about the ripples, ripples. It's simple. The smallest things can make a change. My whisper turns into a voice. The voice turns into a mass of people. And then the whole world sings along. And the whole world sings along. It's all about the ripples.
So, welcome everybody. I won't be able to see everyone, but definitely I think it's time to start, right, Arafat? Yeah. Welcome to Growth Mindsets for Parents and Children. I find myself here today wanting to speak to you about so many things, mostly related to children and parents, but not only. Since the future generation, I think it's the responsibility of everyone, not only parents. So if you've ever been in charge of a child or a caregiver, taking care of a child, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you have ever had a niece, a nephew, or a younger sibling that you took care of, then this presentation is most definitely for you. I kept coming back and going over my presentation several times. At some point I had to stop because I realized that this is going to be a labor of love for me, probably for the rest of my life. So what we will do today, we will explain what growth mindset is and why it matters. And we will also explain, give a few strategies and ways of how to foster growth mindset in our families and in, with our kids, in our households and homes. If you have any questions during the session, I would like to thank you once again, Francisco, my co-host today. He will be keeping an eye on those. And towards the end of the session, I'll be able to take the questions and answer them. Hopefully we can cover everything in all 90 minutes, less than 90 minutes. I'd like to start with a little disclaimer. I'm not here to tell you how to parent your children. I couldn't. First of all, because you as a parent are a specialist in your own children, and parents bring unique perspectives to the important work of raising a child, and they ultimately have to determine what is best for their families. As a coach for kids and teens, as a mindset coach, I am hoping to help you lean into the discomfort and ambiguity and uncertainty that is raising a child. And I'm hoping to also be able to hold an empathetic and warm space so people can find their way, the best way that works for them in their families. So I decided to start with a dedication. It's actually a poem written by Romanian author. She is Ioana Chicet-Macoveichuk. I thought it's only deserving, since I'm representing the country where I was born and raised, that is Romania. And with your permission, I'd like to read this poem out loud, and I hope you enjoy it. To all the children who are cornered and scolded for being children, to all the kids who get spanked by teachers, to all the boys raised not to feel emotion, to all the girls brought up to swallow anything, not to be alone, to the children who are loved, but also to the unloved ones, to the children who grew up alone, convinced that no one can be trusted, not even their own, to children who all their lives need acceptance and forgiveness, especially from themselves. To our children who grow up more confident and trusting that the world is a better place. To those who have courage to ask for a hug when they feel insecure or when it hurts. And to those who offer it. To those who laugh heartily. To those who, though wronged, come back for another chance. To those who have jam running down their chins, stumble over the threshold, and wipe their noses through their sleeves when no one can see them. To all children of all ages, I see you. So I hope you enjoyed the poem. It's one of my favorites. Moving on with our presentation. So who exactly am I? I was born many moons ago into a Romanian Greek-Hungarian family, as you can see on the slide, and was raised by my grandparents until I turned 7. And then, despite living in a very repressed and oppressed society, my grandparents wonderfully modeled fundamental values like respect, loyalty, humanity, and passion. Fast forward in the future, trauma happened, neglect happened, chronic conflict happened, and life transitions happened, and a lot of them. For a while, I was emotionally devastated, and I felt like I was fading away when baby happened. And on account of that, I lost my job. The former employer simply told me, oh, you have your hands full at home anyways. Little did they know that this was actually a new beginning for me. This was hardly the end. The baby was a game changer for me, and I was just about to start the next level of my life. I made a commitment to really be the best I can be. I consider myself very lucky that I was able to reconnect with my own passion, to work with children and communities. I love to really embed a coaching mindset in household and families, in everybody that I work with, to embed acceptance, compassion, tolerance for differences, recognition of each other uniqueness, a lot of resilience and confidence. I will not be giving you the professional description, which you can find on my LinkedIn profile. So I wanted to do it a little bit different. I'll start with a little story, because we all love those. So where I'm living now, there is a community of 121 nationalities and approximately 20,000 people within an area of 6 square kilometers. Can you imagine the wealth of culture and the multitude of backgrounds? Beyond this, there is also an infinite number of scenarios in which things could go wrong. Children can become victims of bullying and verbal abuse, either by the locals or by other foreigners, due to their social background, race, gender, because the language they use at home, or because of the accent with which they speak the local language in school. Just the other day, I was hearing about a boy being bullied at school, not in the area where I live. And these cases come up and are talked about more and more often nowadays. The good thing is that nowadays we can talk about these things more openly than in the past. The other good thing is that we've actually got strategies in place to help kids who go through these experiences, which was something unheard of when I was a child. So I became very interested in growth mindset when my daughter was being bullied as early as 4 years old. She was back then. And the fact is that children who become victims of bullying or any other form of abuse at such a fragile age, they start developing certain mindset. First off, it's hard to stand up for yourself when you are only 4, 6, even 7. And confidence is not something we can have each day, every day, for the rest of our lives. So victims of bullying also struggle with self-esteem, self-love, self-acceptance. They become withdrawn and they slowly disengage from friendships, from schools, even from their own families. In our case with my daughter, I knew firsthand that my daughter had none of those traits before bullying happened, right? So since she was born, she has always been this bubbly, cheerful, confident little kid. A lot of the times as wise as King Solomon. So just the other day, when she came home from school, I could tell that she was feeling down. I acknowledged that. I gave her a hug. I let her have her space, reading or listening to a podcast or just playing in her room. And later, I found the opportunity and I asked her how she felt. And Now, you have to understand that we have managed to create in the household a warm, safe space for us to be able to share with each other when we're feeling down, or to celebrate achievements, or to just be happy for each other's successes. This didn't happen overnight. We managed to create this environment after years and years of trying and failing and trying some more and changing strategies, right? She felt safe enough to come up to me and tell me, "Mom, I don't know what I'm feeling," right? And so I offered, "That's perfectly okay. Can you tell me instead where in your body are you feeling it?" And I invited her to close her eyes. We did a little breathing exercise. Children, they are exceptionally receptive to these techniques and to these, they absorb everything, right? I could tell that she enjoyed the breathing exercise, and her answer came almost immediately after a few seconds into the exercise. She said to me, "In my heart, I feel it in my heart." Fast forward into our exploration, I realized that she was feeling remorseful for something she did in school, or rather refused to do, and for never saying sorry to the person. And that was okay. I'm telling you this because in the moment when somebody opens up like this, especially a child, nothing else really is necessary. No pushing the child to apologize, no offering solutions, no rescuing the child from feeling miserable by trying to entertain them with something else. In such moments, I can see in their little faces how much relief they feel just by simply being allowed to sit with their feelings and talk about it without being scolded or criticized or laughed at for feeling what it is that they are feeling. Because imagine, you are at your worst, feeling most vulnerable, and wanting to talk about it, just wanting to be heard. And instead of hugs and acceptance and comfort, you get solutions for which you might not actually be ready. You get criticism, and you start slowly feeling inadequate, like what you are feeling is not okay. I think that would only add to their shame and guilt that you're already feeling. So when a child is simply willing to admit to their mistake and to admit that they're feeling ashamed or overwhelmed or simply sad, what is the point of criticizing or humiliating them even further? So it all relates back to our mindset. I'd like at this point to invite you to take a couple of moments and answer this question yourselves. What is, in your opinion, a mindset? And please feel free to offer your answers in the chat. I will not be able to follow the chat myself at this point, but my dear co-host, Francisco, he'll be able to unmute himself and let's see. Francisco, we have anything in the chat?
in my opinion, a mindset is one way and pattern of thinking. Amanda was saying, it is my very own playbook on anything and everything.
I love that. I simply love that. Anything else?
Rebecca is saying, mindset is equal my way of looking at things. Marian is perspective. Shirley, a way of thinking. Matumbe, mindset's an attitude. Yeah, those are the ones coming for now.
Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely. So moving on to our presentation, indeed, mindsets are a collection of thoughts, if you will, or a collection of beliefs. A mindset is a particular way of thinking about the world, a set of opinions that we have formed through our culture, upbringing, education, and life experience. Why it matters? Well, it does affect our view of the world, our view of ourselves, our view how much we can perform, how much we can develop, how well we can develop. Ultimately, our view of our own children and other children in our families, even if they are not our own. The good news is that the mindset can be changed. It can be challenging. It is not an overnight homework or something that can happen overnight, but the good news is that it's actually possible to change it with dedication and work and effort. For example, have you ever caught yourself thinking, poor thing, she's not very good at math, she must take after me. Or he is so strong in football, not so much in school, right? These are just a few examples of what a fixed mindset can look like in real life. So going forward, I put together a few others, a selection of other definitions of mindset that you are going to be able to browse and in your own privacy, because at the end of this session, I will make this presentation available for everybody here today. And so we will not pause on those. Now it's time to really activate our brain. So at this point, I'll need again Francisco's help.
Yes.
I'd like to take a journey with you and see how to see a metaphorical journey, of course, not going anywhere, and I hope neither are you, to see how fixed and versus growth mindset looks like in real life, rather than explaining and giving all these Google dictionary type definitions.
I can volunteer myself, definitely, if you want, but maybe you can ask some of our participants. Maybe they would like to experience this as with you. What do you think, Carmen?
Absolutely. This is a great idea, in fact, Francisco. Just a note before we start this exercise journey or activation of our brain, another disclaimer. Since we are talking about children and parents in parallel, we may as well recognize that they both need to evolve together in order for this to work and in order for both to thrive. So the following examples that I put together apply to both children, teenagers, parents, caregivers, educators, step parents, grandparents, any of those categories. So, shall we start, Francisco? Is everyone ready? What do you guys say?
Are you going to be working with me, or are you going to ask someone from the participants to volunteer with you?
No, what the exercise is actually I'm going to give you a sentence.
Okay.
And everybody can put their answer in the chat.
Fantastic.
And if you think and you decide that this is a sentence belonging to a person that a person with a growth mindset would say, then you can put a G in the chat. If you think the sentence belongs in a fixed mindset, then you can put an F in the chat. Does this help?
Yes. G again, sorry, G is again?
G again is for growth mindset.
Okay.
And F again is for fixed mindset.
Lovely.
So, are you ready?
Ready.
Perfect. So, I'll start with the first statement. My sister is a natural leader. I'm a born follower. What does everybody think? Is it a G or an F?
Oh, people are acting F, 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 F.
F, right? So it's correct. If you think this is a fixed mindset, this is it exactly. It's the type of person that believes that genetics has a say in how intelligent we come into the world or not. So we put everything on the shoulders of genetics, so intelligence cannot be developed throughout life. The next statement. This task sounds quite challenging. I am going to try it anyway.
G. Growth mindset, definitely. Growth mindset.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's a pleasure to work with such an audience. It's indeed a growth mindset type of sentence or type of thinking where the person thinking like this embraces a challenge, embraces challenges. And no matter if they feel a little bit anxious or excited about the challenge, they are going to try it anyway. The next statement. I've never been good at public speaking. Let me join Toastmasters speaking course.
I have the G mostly, and I have an F with growth. We have a majority is growth, Carmen.
The majority is a growth. It's exactly right. And the point of this kind of statement is that the thinker is aware of their weaknesses and also aware of what steps to take in order to improve, right? The next one, I am good at languages. Let me learn a different skill.
Same growth, G.
It's a G. It's a growth mindset. That is right. Awareness of one's strengths and the necessity of improving in other areas as well, right? Another one. Yet another one. I don't want to speak in the team meeting. I might not know all the answers, and it will make me look stupid. Fixed or growth?
Everything's going for the F, fixed mindset, Carmen.
Fixed mindset, it's fear of being judged. I know I'm guilty of this many years ago, and even sometimes in the current situation, it happens that we feel afraid of trying something new.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Now I'd like to draw attention also to false growth mindset. This might look something like, you can do anything you want in life, sweetheart. And no one can say that parents don't wish the best for their children. I have never met a parent who doesn't wish the best for their children. And while that might actually come from a good place, it doesn't help because it doesn't take into consideration the knowledge or the level of ability the child is at a certain point in time. Or, for example, another example of false growth mindset is, keep trying. You're going to make it in the end. This is a false growth mindset because, sure, effort and hard work matters. But without change of strategy, without inspecting mistakes, looking back, what did we do wrong, without adjusting our approach, it won't work in the end. So this is also very good to keep in mind when you hear such, or when you are tempted to say out loud to the kids such sentences. Moving on to the next slide, also something that you can enjoy in your own privacy. It's a clear parallel that they draw between fixed mindset and growth mindset. And it shows very clearly that up until now, up until very recently, it was a common belief that we held that once we reach adulthood, our brains are hardwired and incapable of dramatic change, or that we are born with certain talents and traits that cannot be changed throughout life journey. Let's look at our next slide and discover who is in fact responsible for coining this term growth mindset. It is her. I love her. It's Dr. Carol Dweck, Stanford University professor of psychology. And she was the one to coin this term in 2006. First, in her book, you have the cover of the book right here in the image, the mindset, the new psychology of success. And her book and research and work prompted our society to start a huge shift in how we all think about learning and about intelligence. She has defined growth mindset as a system of beliefs that asserts that intelligence can be developed and grown. In contrast, with the growth mindset, she also coined the term fixed mindset as a belief system in which one believes that intelligence is something you are born with, genetics again. So it's therefore innate, and although you can learn new things, your level of intelligence cannot be changed. Now, another crucial thing is that we do not classify people or ourselves into fixed mindset or growth mindset categories. Rarely anyone fits 100% into only one category. We are certain degrees of each mindset, depending on the situation. So I will invite you right now to watch a very short clip featuring Dr. Carol Dweck herself. Everyone ready? Francisco, I suppose, I'm assuming, I don't see the chat, how it looks like, but we can go ahead.
We took fifth graders. We give them puzzles to solve.
So you see these blocks? Can you tell me what color is on that side?
Red, yellow, white, blue.
All right, so what I want you to do is put these blocks together so that the picture on top matches the picture here, all right?
First, we give children a set of easier puzzles to do.
Now here's the next one.
When these 9 and 10-year-olds successfully put together the puzzle, the children are praised for either their intelligence
Wow, you did really well. You must be really smart at these.
or the effort they made.
Wow, you did really well. You must have tried really hard at these.
Then we give them a much harder set of problems, ones that they might, in fact, struggle with.
Here's the next one.
And we see what happens to their confidence. Do they think, oh, this means I'm not good at it after all? Do they stop liking the puzzles? Or do they maintain their confidence and think, well, it just needs more effort or strategies? What happens to their motivation?
Are you ready to go on?
Ta-da!
We also ask them, well, which problems do you want to work on some more? Those easier ones or those harder ones? And generally we find that kids who have been praised for their intelligence really want to go back to those easier ones that were their claim to fame.
This is a sign of a fixed mindset, the belief that intelligence is innate and can't be changed.
What we found was that children thought that difficulty meant they weren't smart or they weren't good at the task.
So you seem to have more trouble with this one, and I want to know why you think that was.
Probably because I'm not good at these problems.
A very discouraging conclusion.
Other children show a growth mindset.
The growth mindset is like this. No matter who you are, you can always become a great deal smarter. They feel smart when they're working really hard on something difficult and making progress.
So if I gave you some more problems, would you like more problems like these that are pretty easy so you'll do well, or problems like these that'll be hard but you might learn a lot from them?
These.
More like these?
Students praised for effort generally want those hard ones that they can learn from. What I've learned from my research is that kids, and I think adults too, are exquisitely sensitive to what's going on in a situation, what other people value, what they're being judged on. What is that voice in our head saying? Is it saying fixed mindset things like, oh, you better not make a mistake, you better look smart, people are judging you? Or is it saying growth mindset things? Here's an opportunity, here's a mistake I can learn from. I feel smart when I do something difficult.
So I hope you enjoyed the, it's stands proof to everything that she worked on and she researched and everything that we have talked about so far. At this point, I'd like to ask Francisco, are there any questions in the chat?
This point, well, one of the reactions is that Sheena was enjoying the video. Not questions, but there was a comment coming from 90 before about the mindset.
Yes.
It's also a set of beliefs that shape your perception, how the world around is. And Farid, also the comment from mindset, the way you view things based on past experience, education, etc. That was, but no question at all yet.
Beautiful, beautiful. Please feel free to place your questions in the chat again. I loved all the definitions that you had for mindset as a generic term. Now, moving on to how we can instill and foster a growth mindset in our homes and with our children, nephews, nieces, extended family, and friends even. Schools, educators. First of all, make a note. Parents, teachers, coaches, or other adult role models should never blame genetics for perceived capabilities. I have a friend who used to say about her back then 6-year-old boy. She had twins, right? A boy and a girl. And she used to say about him, he's such a pussy. And his sister is not. So you can imagine the impact that kind of statement has on that little boy's mindset and the effect that will have throughout life, unless he is helped, and how we can help children in our home by praising effort. So if you communicate low expectations to your children, either verbally or with your mimic, because they're extremely attentive and they're paying attention to all of our gestures and words, even when they look like they don't, they absorb absolutely everything we do. Sometimes we can see that they imitate us, right? When they think we cannot see them, they imitate us, or they fight or debate or argue with their friends like we do in the household sometimes. So if we communicate low expectations from them, that means that their achievement will suffer or can suffer. And we can praise for effort. We can praise mistakes. I actually have started a little tradition in my family, and actually with some very receptive clients I had in their own families, where at least once a week we ask each other at the dinner table, for example, what have you failed at this week? And this kind of question is meant by no means to humiliate the other, is meant to promote failure as an opportunity to learn. What have you failed at this week? And the answers, they don't only seem surprised when they are very young by this question, by any question for that matter, because they love questions and they ask the questions themselves. But the answers which they give, they surprise us. In reality, kids are capable beyond our imaginations. Like my own trainer and coach, Lux Hetiadura, said once, children are really capable beyond our imagination. We can adopt a flexible mindset, for example. If an approach or a strategy isn't working, roll with the punches. Get curious, get creative, change the strategy. Just because somebody in an environment or in a family, in a group of children in school, has a certain solution for a math exercise, let's say, it does not mean that there cannot be other solutions to the same problem. So let's recognize and celebrate our children's uniqueness and creativeness. Last but not least, promote an environment, as I mentioned in the beginning, where people can share how they feel about their struggles, about their challenges, and where they can ask for support or help from friends, from the family. Yes. Do we have any questions, Francisco?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Carmen. Now, I have a question coming from Amanda. Her
Yes.
question is, for children with different needs, etc., ADHD or ASD example, how can we better cultivate growth mindset?
Very good question and very beautiful. Thank you, Amanda, for asking that question. Since ADHD is a medical issue and I am not a medical specialist yet, you'll understand immediately why I'm laughing at the word yet. I'm not also very sure how I can ask, but what I recommend in my own practice when such issues are discovered, such medical issues are diagnosed by a medical specialist, right? By a doctor, by a professional. What I recommend is ergotherapy. And I am not sure how many of you have are familiar with the term, but I know quite a few families who have worked with that. Actually, the practices are pretty full and they have very long waiting lists for children with such issues. And ergotherapy is something said that works. Other than that, connection with your own child, because as I mentioned in the beginning, you're the specialist in your child. It all come back at the parent, right? It all starts with you. So if you put in the work and the patience, and you learn about strategy, how you can help your own child, regardless of the issues they have, then I think you're on the path to success. I hope I have answered the question to the best of my abilities. Any other question, Francisco?
Yes.
Please.
Well, Amanda was saying, could you spell that, please? That's one. Also clarify.
Good. Sorry, once again?
She's asking, could you spell that, please, Amanda?
Ergotherapy. Yeah, I'm actually going to do something better than this. I'm going to put it here.
Okay.
In the chat.
Yes. And then we have another question while you're writing.
Yeah.
Coming from Jocelyn. How can we promote growth mindset in a remote learning? Very, very common now, this one.
Why don't we hold on to that thought, Francisco, until we get to the next slide, because that's going to be, I hope, pretty self-explanatory. And it applies very well, beautifully actually, in an online setup as well. So hold on to that beautiful question. Thank you for asking that. Anything else?
Yeah. Okay. Nitin saying, how leadership mindset and behavior should shift for leaders post-pandemic when leaders themselves are also suffered through pandemic challenges?
Beautiful question, Nitin, and I was pausing because it requires a lot of self-reflection of that person, individual, regardless. As we discovered throughout this mega event, leadership starts at home and with ourselves, and it requires a lot of work on yourself first, on your own values, as we were mentioning just the other day. And when I say self-reflection, I mean everything, finding out what your values are, what you want to be remembered for, where your passion lies. I was in such a situation not very long ago, and it's not for lack of problems that I started following my passion, right? So it gives you purpose. It gives you purpose, right? Following where your passion leads you, it gives you purpose in life. So it all starts with oneself. It all comes back to the parent or to the individual, to the leader. Yeah. So, and it's not, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not something that can be easily done. I don't know, in 2 months. And I would say it's even wrong to set yourself a deadline, because you cannot. It's a lifelong journey. And also, as we mentioned going through the presentation, it would be unrealistic and also unhealthy to start labeling yourself in one category only or another. You will always, and we will always be a mix of both, right? Depending on the situation and circumstances. And there are, in fact, to support this this idea, there are in fact situations when even professionals like psychologists and neuropsychologists, therapists, coaches, they catch themselves having a mindset. And the important thing is that you catch yourself before it affects you and the others around you. And you start looking at the situation from a different perspective. I hope I answered that. I'd love to continue the conversation on that question.
Well, Nitin, well, in respect of that, Nitin was replying back that he's agreeing what you're stating, Carmen, but he said that, but sometimes organization doesn't give you enough time to recover, but to act soon.
Sure, absolutely. For the sake of this presentation, because we are referring to families and parents and children and private setup, right? Intimate environment and not companies. But I'd have to say the wider the organization, the bigger the family, the more challenges there are, right? Because you have families with mixed mindsets. Some are thinking in their own ways, ancient ways, and some are thinking, and for some reason, you're not always in a position to remove yourself from the immediate family. So I absolutely understand where he comes from with this affirmation statement, right? It's absolutely true. The wider the community or family or company, the more difficult it becomes. The good news is, however, that we can start with ourselves, and we can start small. And like I say in my coaching practice, if I can change one person or impact, not change, impact in a positive way, one person's life, then I fulfilled my my purpose. So yeah, thank you, Nitin, for the question and for the comment. Anything else, Francisco?
Well, questions are coming, so I don't know if you want to create now or
yeah, we'll do it. You will do it, but Sure. The plan is to go over the questions towards the end of our, absolutely. I'm thrilled to answer the questions towards the end of the session. For the sake of being very aware of the time as well, I'd like to go to the next slide.
Okay.
And also to keeping in mind that question about how you can instill, if I remember correctly, it was how can you instill a growth mindset working with children remotely?
Correct. I will hold those. No worries.
That's a beautiful question. Let's pause here. Grades suggest where a child is at one moment in time. In a particular subject, in a particular skill, they don't have to be their life identity. It's not a death sentence. Those grades can be improved. So the way growth mindset looks at grades is that they are in themselves rewards for hard work, effort, and strategy. You don't need any other rewards. The grades are the rewards. And in her research and work, Dr. Carol Dweck had actually some very interesting findings. She went to interview a few children and the staff of a school in the US, and she discovered that that school implemented a new grading system for children. You know how we all have those A, B, C, you are an F, you are an D, you are having a test and you got a D and you're very upset. And some other countries have different systems of grading the students, but most of us have heard of that and have had that in their own childhood. And so she found out that that particular school was grading the kids not yet there or not there yet. So that prompted her to say that she fell in love with a new word. Very little, but very powerful and hopeful word. That means at a future time, and that word is yet. This is tried and tested and tried method of working with children. I have tested it in my own family with my own 7-year-old daughter, and this works wonders when of course sometimes parents do not have a say in the strategy and management of a school, but you can bring ideas to some of the schools and to some of the teachers, and as showed in the clip earlier, when children believe that they have the possibility to grow in something, they work harder, they are hopeful, they become more willing to put in the time, to put in the effort, to share their achievements, right? So that's why for her, for Dr. Carol Dweck, this word became a very empowering word that shifts thinking from a fixed mindset immediately to a growth mindset. And with the remote learning, I think this works, not I think, it's been proven in some other practices and environments in schools that this actually works. I don't know if there is any comment on this, but how many of you have heard a child say, "I can't do this, it's too difficult"? I just heard my daughter saying that the other day. I say, yet. You can't do this yet. How many of you have, those who have teens at home, sometimes they wear it as a badge of honor and they say, "Oh, I'm not part of the geeky triad," or "I will never be part of the math club. I'm too cool for that. I'm not a geek." And I say, yet. That opens up doors for them. in the subconscious, in the back of their head. They're going to absorb that. The more they hear, the more they absorb that. And that's just a beautiful thing. I've seen it happen, and I know for sure I've seen it happen with me, so myself. Because in reality, anyone can learn anything through commitment, hard work, strategy, and support. Support is also something very important. So when they learn remotely, it's very important that they can rely, hopefully, on older siblings or parents that are involved in the child's education. After all, it's a parent's responsibility, and not only, but mainly it's up to the parent to make sure that the child gets an education. So yeah, I hope I answered that question. I would love to move on. I love to talk about this little word. The power of yet is really powerful. Now, Francisco, is it okay if we move on, or?
Yes, I have all the questions reserved for later. I'm writing them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Francisco. So now, who or what is exactly responsible for us being able to shift mindsets like this? I have found this beautiful quote, too beautiful to set aside, so I decided to put it in the presentation. It will stay with you once you have the presentations for yourselves. Every man can, if he so desires, become the sculptor of his own brain. This quote belongs to a famous neuroscientist, a Spanish neuroscientist, and the Nobel Prize winner in physiology and medicine, Santiago Ramón y Cajal, and it came as early as the second half of the 19th century. It is, in my opinion, the first definition of neuroplasticity that has ever been given. Back then, they didn't know about neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the key to our brain limitless potential. Now, I'm smiling because I made myself some notes here, which I have in front of me, and I make no secret out of that. And when I typed in neuroplasticity the first time, even the word didn't recognize it to be correct. So this is how new this term is. How did this came to be? How did this come to be? Recent brain research demonstrates that the brain can develop and change with proper stimuli and challenges, and that, in fact, IQ can be increased. One reason why this was possible recently is because of our available advanced technology we have at our disposal, something that they didn't have back in the 19th century. So with the help of this advanced technology, specialists helped examine the functions and the made-up of the brain. Also, the first one who coined this term was the Polish neuroscientist Jerzy Konopski, as early as 1948. So, under medical healthy conditions, and I want to emphasize this, going back to the question with ADHD, under medically healthy conditions. We know now that the brain has the ability to change, adapt, and rewire itself throughout our entire life. So, for example, anyone who has witnessed someone recovering from a stroke has had a front row seat in watching neuroplasticity at work. But even in the rewiring process, in the brain of a stroke patient, even if the rewiring starts almost immediately, it takes the patient's hard work and effort to gain much of what they have lost. I have read a lot about neuroplasticity. I had to understand it really well for myself before I could explain it to others. So what happens in the brain is that, for example, when neurons connect, a pathway occurs, a synapse. This is called a synapse. And these connections are strengthened with practice and effort. So imagine you're having a certain thought in your brain. That thought makes the neurons in your brain pulsate. And by pulsating, they create a certain path with other neurons. And they start pulsating together. And that becomes a way of thinking about a certain thing. And the more they start pulsating together, then the more you have that thought, it becomes ultimately a belief. Now, when something happens and you have some difficulty or somebody questions your way of thinking, or trauma happens, or stress, or difficult situation, challenges, right? You start questioning it yourself, that thought. So new neurons start pulsating differently, and they start trying to find other neurons in the brain that can pulsate like them. A new path is created, and that shifts the old way you used to think about a certain thing into a new way, and that becomes a new belief, and so on. So, for example, if you have ever tried breaking a bad habit like smoking, that's exactly how it works. I'd like to invite you to watch a very short video which can explain perhaps even better what neuroplasticity is.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Yeah, so this definitely was a very recent discovery that shifted the way we look at intelligence and at IQ. Neuroplasticity, as I mentioned earlier, can result from different things, from traumatic events, stress, social interaction, meditation, even emotions that we are having every day, from paying attention, learning, reading, right? Taking up a new yoga class or new experiences. And they call it the bright and dark side of neuroplasticity, because neuroplasticity unfortunately can work both ways, in our favor or unfavorable. Meaning that if we look on the right, neuroplasticity means the brain is always learning, even from the negative experiences. So the brain is neutral. It doesn't know the difference between good or bad, all on its own, and it learns whatever is repeated. So both helpful and unhelpful thoughts, actions, and habits. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone, what are a few key takeaways from today's session? And I have not forgotten about the Q&A session, not at all. Just bear with me a few moments longer. Francisco, we have anything in the chat about key takeaways from what we have heard so far?
Oh, not yet. Not that. Well, say Petra, say children grow better when they are watered, not watered down.
Sure, absolutely. Even Dr. Carol Dweck said, right? I mean, when you build somebody up, it's much better than when you scold them and you put them down. Definitely, even grown-ups, everyone. That's why basically it can happen at any stage in life. Anything else, Francisco?
Yeah, evidence says she take away false growth mindset.
Wonderful, wonderful. If we catch ourselves doing that or others, then we can identify. The more we do it, the more it becomes a second nature. And the easier it becomes. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, Farid. Hope at any age we can learn new things and break old habits.
Beautiful. That's exactly it. That gives us a lot of hope, isn't it? And that's the impact we are hoping to have on the future generations.
Yeah.
So
yeah, another one. The last I have here, Marianne. I like this one because I resonate this also. Rewiring the brain. Absolutely.
They say brain cells fire together, wire together. That's what the specialists are saying. Brain cells, neurons, they fire together and wire together. So I put together a few takeaways that you can browse on your own back home. It's basically a summary of what we have been discussing today, and you have added to this beautifully. The way we praise kids matters, and inevitably it affects their mental health and mental well-being when they grow up. When kids and teens believe they can get smarter, they put in extra time and effort and work harder for higher achievement. And the idea that the intelligence can be developed. It's not a static, it's not set in stone. I love this one. It's not something you are born with. You are not a born leader. You work hard to becoming a leader. Yeah, just a few takeaways. Again, I thought it's worth leaving it there before we end. A few beautiful quotes from my personal research on the topic. And I think right now would be a very good time to take the rest of the questions, Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, I will share you the question, but I just want to add one of the takeaways coming from Rebecca to say the power of yet has become powerful for me, coming from Rebecca.
I'm so happy. It gave my daughter so much hope, and all the children that I've been working with, and including myself, because I'm very much in touch with my inner child. So from time to time, I have to take care of her as well. So the power of yet really made an impact on myself, starting with myself. I'm very happy. Any other takeaway?
Yeah, last one I got here from Tasmin. Yes, intelligence can be developed, but we need motivation.
Absolutely. And that's a very good point. Tasmin, thank you for your comment. That is absolutely right. I'll get back to that just in a few minutes after we finish with the questions, because I'll disclose the information towards the end of the session.
Okay. Questions then? Can I share your questions?
Yes, please, Francisco. Yes.
This one, the one with comment from Jocelyn. How can we promote growth mindset in a remote learning?
As I mentioned, something that has been tested and tried, it's the power of yet. It matters very much as well the environment in which the child finds themselves. If it's a supportive family, because it's basically impossible for a 7, 8, 9-year-old to come home. I had this conversation many times with many clients. Why don't they just come home, sit, and do their homework all on their own, by themselves, through their own volition? And when they're quite young, it's almost impossible. I don't want to say there are those exceptions who are exceptions from the rule, but the rule is that even in my own household, the parents' responsibility is to get involved in the beginning of the process until the kid develops certain good habits. So that's modeling. By modeling this kind of behavior, the parents can organize. For example, this would be, off the top of my head, just one of the many solutions. They can organize a reading night every week, for example, Wednesdays or Fridays or during the weekend, and they all can sit together in the living room or some cozy space in the house where they can actually read, each of them age-appropriate books. And that way the parent models the behavior that they would like to see in their own children. This also promotes growth mindset.
Yeah. Got the other one I have coming from Mary. Can you force a growth mindset through punishing a child who appears to be rebellious in terms of character?
Once again, what's the name of the person? Very beautiful.
Mary, say that the question coming from Mary, he said, can you force a growth mindset through punishing a child who appears to be rebellious? Like a term.
I love the question. Thank you so much, Mary. Actually, my daughter is also called Mary, but the Romanian version, Mary. Thank you so much for the question. I would first of all, I would note the keywords force and perceived rebellious character. First of all, we cannot force anything on anyone, not even on ourselves. It just doesn't work. And another keyword I would pick up on in a normal one-on-one coaching session would be punishment. Growth mindset, by definition, has to complete. I mean, it's completely the opposite of punishment. As I mentioned in the example I gave earlier with modeling the behavior, with a reading night, for example, we can influence the child to adopt a growth mindset, but we cannot force, and definitely not through punishment. Most of the times, I've seen it happen in my own family and many other families I've worked with. When you punish, especially a rebellious child, that will come back to haunt the parent. There are strong characters. They know what they want. They know best what they want. So instead, of us thinking that we know what they want, simply listening to their feelings and needs and wants and desires would help much more than punishing. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Next one from Rebecca.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about the mindsets of millennials in the workspace who seem to be on the contrary to the traditional work expectations? Do you think parenting has a lot to do with this?
Yeah, I would love to have you on a one-on-one coaching session, because I'd like to ask back, what exactly do you mean by the behavior of millennials? It can mean a number of things. Maybe ask Rebecca if we are talking about arrogance, entitlement, or short fuse, or it can mean a number of things to different people. This is not a question, a whole discussion in itself. Mm-hmm. And parenting, usually it all starts in childhood. As I said in many times, it all starts in childhood. Everything has to do with parenting styles that they have witnessed at home. But what exactly does she mean by behavior of the millennials? Do we have that, Francisco?
What do you mean we have?
Maybe Rebecca can tell us.
I was going to say, if maybe Rebecca's the one who could.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rebecca is now in writing. Rebecca says entitlement. I do things I want to do. For example.
Yeah, sure. It does start at home, and it does start in the childhood, but this is growth mindset. It has nothing to do with that. This rather has to do with the tendency of being overly confident in your youth, or the desire to make up for your years of experience when you're facing a pro or a senior. They do that for a number of reasons. Sometimes because they have a slight narcissistic trait, personality trait. But this is an entirely different discussion. Growth mindset has nothing to do with entitlement. We can do what we want, but not whenever we want, and not if we impact negatively other people's lives around us, right? And I believe, it could be misinterpreted, miscommunication at home, and how they understood things, and how they that's why it's very important how we communicate and how we praise for effort. And that's why those subtle ways in which we praise our children matter very much. This is more of a fixed mindset. I want to do when I want to do whatever I want to do to whoever I want to do. This is very much fixed, right? I mean, it's when somebody at home said to you very early on that you're so smart, you can do anything you want. This is the false growth mindset, right?
Yeah. Next one.
Yes.
Tasnim, how to
Yes.
stimulate learning motivation for child and university students when the educational system don't help?
That's next on our agenda. I know that there are some other regions in the world who have already put together and placed different growth mindset programs for educators in school universities. It's recent. Let's be hopeful. It's going to spread fast and large. Because the next on the list would be growth mindset for educators. There are numerous programs, but there are a lot of programs for parents and for students. And I was going to actually I am going to sit here a little bit on this slide. There are many online resources, and at the level of the organization, sometimes we feel helpless because we cannot change, because there are different stakeholders that sometimes themselves have a very fixed mindset. And again, it all comes back to us individually. There are a lot of resources. You, in your own group of students, can apply these strategies. And I have actually put together, that's the end part of the session, a program, a growth mindset program for parents that will last over 6 sessions. But there are also many online resources you can work with in a classroom full of children, depending on their age, even for teenagers. So basically, I put a list together here, the resources for parents, for children. There are movies, there are very fantastic books for teens as well. Yeah. For teachers, there is a very, it's a book. It's a beautiful book. I'm looking to purchase it myself because I still believe in having the hard copy book in my library rather than reading it electronically. The Growth Mindset Playbook, classroom practices that construct a framework for student achievement. It's a teacher's guide to promoting student success. You can do that at an individual level rather. And a few more resources, podcasts. I mentioned I started running these podcasts, and my daughter is listening into them, and she becomes very curious, and then she asks a lot of questions. You could do things differently in your lessons, depending what you're teaching. And even if you're teaching math, there is plenty of room to find strategies and ways to include a little bit of an activity that promotes growth mindset. Organizations-wide, it's true. It's a little bit more difficult. It would have to start from top down. Next question. I hope I answered that, Tasneem. Sorry, Tasneem. Yeah? Francisco?
Yeah, Tasneem is a thumbs up. Yes, thank you. Okay, another question I have is coming from, well, the question, but not a question. I have a question, but let me finish a comment coming from Niti. Say, Carmen, we can reserve a detailed conversation post-symposium. I think there was a good conversation about the leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I am myself very much a learner in this topic. I love it because it literally changed my life. And I'm sure that we are only scratching the surface. Yeah, the possibilities are endless, limitless. So I'd love to have that conversation, Nitin, and for that matter, with anyone who's interested to continue this conversation offline. Yes, Francisco, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, another question I have coming from Petra. So, do parenting styles operate in a cultural context in a way that at times what works in Australia doesn't work in Nigeria, or that what works in Chicago can cause trouble in Kampala?
Absolutely. Yes, this is a very nice statement. What is the question?
Well, just say is that there's different parenting styles operate in a cultural context.
Absolutely. That's why when we started, if you remember in the beginning, if you meaning the audience, if you remember, we started by saying that the mindset in itself, it's a system of beliefs, which we formed throughout our upbringing, cultural background, and so on and so forth. And it might not work, what works in New York very well in Kampala, but having that in the back of our heads, we always can find ways that could work individually for our own family, to promote, we have to dare a little bit to be different in order to, if we want to see our children thinking different than we were raised to think. We have to be a little bit daring. Hence, that's why I love this concept very much. Yes, any other question? I see a raised hand. Tasneem?
Yes.
Or
yes. Yes, thank you. Just a little bit of question about the term of punishing and force. Just a statement and to verify if it is true. Is it correct that as a parents we must take some rules with our children, so and it isn't it is with a democracy, so to choose some rules with our children, and then if these rules weren't respected, so punishing makes sense.
Absolutely.
Does it work?
Absolutely. I don't, there are many styles of parenting. And when I said I'm putting together a program for parents, that's exactly what, there are many things that I will be introducing. I'll be introducing the Carmen drama triangle, which explains beautifully how usually parents interact with their own children. I won't divulge everything here today, but it's a beautiful tool to be used at home by parents. There are many parenting styles, and it's tried and tested that in reality, punishment instills fear, and they will be doing it because they fear you or fear the person, the grown-up, the adult, or through consequences, which are, there's multiple types of consequences, and they'll be doing it because they understand what the logical consequence of them doing this thing will be. And for example, I have in my household set up a set of rules. These concern behavior and corporal hygiene, right? But I also always give, and I advise parents to do as much as possible that also give way to my kid having her own choices as well. For example, I say something like, you do not have a say on what we eat for breakfast today, but you can choose what you are going to wear in school today. You know, and I only have a 7-year-old daughter, very spirited one. I imagine in a household with more children, it's even can be perceived more difficult, but in reality, the older ones can help the parents. And I would always implicate them and involve them in making certain decisions. For example, you do not get a say in brushing your teeth. This is something, but you can accept to be hugged or not, or you can decide whether or not you wish to share a book or a toy. This is something, I mean, it's a double standard otherwise from our part, right? To, oh, why don't you share with your friends? Just because you have to think, why are you requesting your child to do something? Are you requesting her or him to do a certain thing to help you look better in front of other parents? Because you're angry with the child, because you don't want to feel weak. So it has more implications in a family. I understand exactly where you're coming from. There are very many tools to be learned in this respect, but punishment never works. And if it does, they will do it for fear, and they will fear you for the rest of their lives. And they will remember. Yeah.
Yes, and it is more complicated with teens.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very long, it's a beautiful question. It's a very long, not long, but very complex topic, this one. First of all, we have to understand the teenager, or at least remember how we were when we were teenagers. It's not easy to be a teenager, especially not nowadays. When you're exposed, I know I wasn't. I had a fairly, maybe I'm not the best example, but back in the day, there weren't so many exposures to social media, Facebook, and all of that. And there are movies on Netflix even. They started making these movies about the struggles of a teenager. And while this is about for a certain category of age, I think it's very important for parents sometimes to maybe organize a movie night with their children and watch those, especially if the children are teenagers, and realize that they're exposed to bullying. We didn't have, first of all, we didn't have the term bullying back in the day, and also people were not so daring in a negative way. Yeah, so teenagers go through hormonal challenges and changes, and at the same time, they become more and more aware of who they are, or if they don't know, that's pretty much the age when they start searching for who they are. So they're becoming more and more aware that they need to have an identity. Who am I? And you can also start later. It's never too late to start instilling this safe space in the household. But that's why we promote it early on, so that they feel comfortable enough in teenagehood to come back home and, want to talk to you, want to share, want to tell you their troubles, and they can confide in you, and knowing that you won't be judging them or punishing them, or humiliating them. Yeah.
Yes, fortunately, I have a friendship relationship with my two sons and my sister. But I sometimes I feel that I haven't enough tools how to advise, how to communicate. Sometimes she is lost. Sometimes I'm frustrated when I see that she take many times watching stupid videos and instead of learning or of take creative work, do creative work. So I look after motivating her, so she do interesting things with pleasure.
Absolutely.
It is a yes,
because
because I have a very high cognitive motivation, and I try to compare myself with my daughter or my son, because they are totally different. They are intelligent, creative, but cognitive motivation is very low in my perception.
Again, perceived belief about her, right?
Yes,
yeah, if you want to instill something, you also have to be aware that you, first of all, have to follow through and stay the track, right? It's up to you, it's not up to the children. And it's up to us to discipline and influence them. Yeah, not through punishment, because that most of the times doesn't work, and doesn't work for the right reasons. Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Tasnim, my pleasure. Yes, Francisco, anything else in the chat?
I think for now, I think we have covered everything, unless I pass one, but I think for now, questions and comments has been shared. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Francisco. I'd really like to take a moment and appreciate and congratulate all the participants of this mega event. It takes tremendous commitment for growth to be here with us almost every day for 40 days. So my hats off to you. Congratulations. You have basically taken more than the first step. I'd like to thank Arafat for his passion. Now I'm feeling like I'm kind of like receiving some sort of Oscar. But honestly, I'd like to thank Arafat for giving me this opportunity to share stage with so many amazing professionals, and for seeing such a concept from beginning to end. This again takes tremendous dedication, and he's a very passionate leader. And I'd like to thank you and express my gratitude to our team of speakers who managed to send me all the positive vibes today, yesterday, and throughout this mega event. I even felt at home. And I have prepared this QR code for all who want to get in touch with me. Shall we try a couple of times to see? I tried it before. I know it works from various types and brands of phones. And it will take you to all of my contact details. So you can contact me via social media channel, or you can contact me via WhatsApp number, and I'd love to hear from you. I am also starting a new program, as I mentioned, Growth Mindset for Parents, at the middle of November. It is a 6-session program during which we will be using with the parents self-reflection tools and many more resources. And I will be introducing the concept of Carmen drama triangle and many other concepts that can be useful at home in your families with your children, even with the grown-up children that some of you might have, who in turn have their own children. So if you're grandparents, definitely you can share that with your loved ones. Your learnings can be shared. And this is a paid program. So for everyone here, I have decided I will offer the program for a discount of 50%. I guess this is the end of my session. I thank you once again for being here with us tonight, this afternoon or morning. Coming up next, our leader and organizer of this mega symposium tomorrow, our usual time, 7 p.m. IST. And I hope we'll be closing with a bang. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carmen.
Coach
Thank
Carmen,
you.
excellent.
Very much, Carmen. This has
So
been excellent.
So happy you enjoyed. Thank you, Arafat. You're up next.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you. And congratulations for a great session. I am a father of two boys, aged 10 and 6. So great takeaways for me as well. Okay. And finally, the baton is over to me right now. Earlier, it was too easy to exchange the baton from one coach to another. It was an easy process. But when it reached to me, I'm a bit nervous right now. Anyway, I invite you all for the final day tomorrow, the 14th day. Okay, let's make it a memorable one. I have a story to share with you. The story of the mega symposium, the background story, and a few reminders to make a sustainable transformation, because it's been 39 days fully loaded with informations and knowledge, and tomorrow we are going to make it a memorable one. Let's have a memorable day, an entertaining session, and let's sing a song together with the message of togetherness and about we are one. Okay, so see you there.
Wonderful. I can't
see you
wait.
Tomorrow.
Great. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Not enough. It's very important.